We are coming up with an exciting series of iconic ads under IBB, Icons Behind Brand. This all with me, Devleena. We have our co-host, Mr. Saurabh Bajaj. Hi, Saurabh.
Hi,
Hi.
absolutely great to be here.
Saurabh, we are going to pick up some exciting, iconic ad which I have been, admiring, and I have been, watching that ad from pretty long time. One of the best ad, I would say.
Should we talk about some promos, where you are able to sell some deals? So, something like that?
No, not that, Saurabh. It's literally iconic. Iconic and
Okay. That sounds really exciting. What do you have in mind?
yes, so it's big. It's something really big and it's huge. I mean, the excitement is also huge. So you tell what is something very large and iconic and which represents India also because it's Indian iconic ads.
When I was a child, it was all about WWF, and I think from India, whom did we have? We had Khali, right?
Yes, it's Khali. It's if you remember the Ambuja cement Khali ad. अगर आपको याद होगा घर एक स्वर्ग होता है. Do you remember that ad?
Right. Yeah. In fact, I was just thinking about it. जहाँ वो he's not able to walk through his house, his head is banging against the wall, something is breaking. Yeah, I think that was a load of laughs.
Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, I literally loved the idea of, how a normal human being, we have never thought of about that. Like, this is the normal problems for that person, right?
Yeah, it was quite an innocent ad, but let's see it maybe, and then we'll remember how it actually, played out.
Yeah, so let me play the ad.
घर एक स्वर्ग होता है जैसे चाहे रो जियो लेकिन मेरे साथ ऐसा नहीं था।
बड़ा प्यारा बेटा है खली, बस कभी कभी अपनी ही ताकत नहीं समझ पाता।
जिस ताकत ने मेरे को दुनिया भर में मान सम्मान दिलाया वही ताकत मेरी प्रॉब्लम बन गई। कभी सोचता था मैं अगर मैं औरों की तरह होता, पर मेरी माँ कहती थी नहीं बेटे तू स्पेशल है। और ऐसा ही चलता रहा। अपने आप को मैं हेल्पलेस फील करता था। फिर एक दिन मौसी ने बताया अंबुजा सीमेंट से घर बना लो। उसके बाद पता चला घर पे रहने का मजा है।
We hear about so many challenges these days, no? So men rights, so women rights, sexuality, but somebody's size being something that you should really care about. That now that's a fresh thought, very relevant to today's time when we are talking about making it an equal world for everybody. But such a interesting way of portraying this.
Yeah, and great concept. And creative as well. Whosoever have thought about that, I feel it's a great concept.
Yeah, Devleena, it was such a fascinating, ad and a conversation between the two of us. But if you could bring in somebody, who has probably seen this from behind the scenes, that would be really fascinating.
Or you really want that, Saurabh? So let's find out somebody. I have a guest, who can actually talk about what has happened behind the scenes, and we can bring out some of the stories for sure, which we are not aware. Okay, let me call our guest for today, Mr. Chandan Jha, who has handled the account of Publicis the time, and Publicis has created this particular ad for Ambuja cement. So I'm sure we are going to get a lot of stories. So let's welcome Chandan. Hi Chandan. So I would love to know, starting from about your journey first, about your background and your association with Ambuja cement at that time.
So I spent close to about 15 odd years in advertising before I was at Publicis. And actually, Bharti AXA was one of the first pitches that we won or rather, I won as one of my key businesses when we took it on. This was possibly my last year working in advertising, in an advertising agency, as in many ways, right? So Ambuja was one of my key businesses apart from AXA. And Ambuja was one where we kind of, had a very different working relationship. So apart from looking at their above the line, whatever they were doing, we had a consulting division within Publicis, which was actually working on their marketing consulting, on their marketing activities and initiatives altogether. So Ambuja it's the largest cement brand in our country, right? They're almost one of the leading ones, even in terms of mind share. So when we took them on, they were already sitting with more than 60% top of mind.
So Khali is a very unusual choice. Who would think about Khali to take as a brand ambassador? So how the idea came up here?
So the first idea was we were trying to take this into a metaphorical space, right? Almost of saying, from all these expressions of strength, right? We were trying to own something which was about a new dimension of strength, right? That there are walls of prejudice in the society that need to be torn down. Right? There was a commercial that we had done before this. That's also an interesting one, by the way, right? Where a little kid is asked to stand in class and talk about his essay on Diwar.
We play both.
And
in the series, we covered both.
Okay.
Yeah, and he then goes on to talk about, Diwar achhi hoti hai aur buri hoti hai. Okay.
Yes.
So the teacher is like, ye buri diwar kya hoti hai? So then he goes on to say that main mera dost hai Iqbal. Okay. तो मेरे चाचा जी उसके साथ खेलने को मना करते हैं, right? उसके साथ क्रिकेट नहीं खेलने देते हैं. So then it kind of dawns upon the teacher that actually he's talking about the walls of prejudice that exist in our society, right? So while it was very elevated, did extremely well in different researches, but it didn't do so well in terms of cutting ice when we put it on air, right? It was deep, it was philosophical, right? But it really didn't cut ice the way Ambuja had been perceived so far, right? Ambuja was always about this brand ki bhaiya ye diwar tooti kyun nahi, right? There were this that was the most memorable line that people knew on it, right? So we actually had to go back to the drawing board and find the expression for strength, or a new expression for this giant compressive strength that we keep talking about, right? It was actually somebody in our creative team who came up with it, right? And he said that it was a single line idea before we said that please go ahead and kind of flesh it out. And he said कि it's इस पे खली चाहिए. Okay, it just was as random as that. इस पे ना खली चाहिए. And when we presented the idea, I don't think anybody wanted a research or anything to be done. Actually, it was a large it was a large board meeting with the who's who of Ambuja sitting around there, and the who's who of our agency. Everybody was there in that meeting, but it just came down to the head of brands at Ambuja standing up and saying, I want Khali and I want it delivered by by the next
Nice.
So there was immense belief in the idea from the moment anybody heard it. Okay, there was no banter, there was no argument, there was no whatever, there was no discussion, there was no debate. It just went on, right?
So as Khali has never done any ad before, right? So how did you manage the relationship with Khali and his team?
The moment I got out of that meeting room, the first thing I made a couple of calls was to a few celebrity managers trying to figure out if Khali ko manage kaun karta hai.
Khali chahiye.
Because the idea didn't work without Khali, right? And the first thing you have to like tie down is who's Khali. So we just figured that there's no real celebrity manager that Khali has.
True.
Yeah. So we had to find him a manager first. And I remember the next thing, as in 3 days, we found him a manager because we wanted to put somebody in between, so somebody would manage him rather than us trying to manage him.
How was the first meeting with Khali? And did he also came up with any idea, or how the script happened? Okay.
So we landed in Amritsar to meet him.
Oh.
And he came.
Wow.
He came along with he came along with some of his relatives and some friends of his and his lawyer as well, right, to meet us.
Lawyer as well.
And,
Must have been a scary gathering to look at.
oh, absolutely. They took pictures of us, and we were all half the size of all those people there, right?
Oh my God.
So they quoted everything that they wanted, and I told the manager. And I told the guy who we had taken along, saying that you are going to be his manager because you are going to manage him from now on. Okay, you please figure this out with him, right? So by the time we left from there, all those people who had come with Khali took our pictures and all that. ये पता नहीं कौन लोग हैं जो बॉम्बे से आए थे. So anyways, all that kind of happened. He agreed on it. He had his own ideas on what he wanted to do. So he wanted to play something else, and he wanted to do whatever, different things. He wanted to be the hero, right? And he wanted to catch hold of the ठेकेदार and all that, right?
Okay.
So we're like, नहीं, हम वैसा कुछ नहीं बनाने वाले हैं. Then I have to narrate the script to him and take him through the script कि वो क्या रहा है. So after 2 days, we came back with him signed on to saying that okay, he will do this. Even then, we were like, in two minds whether because he's not somebody who's done too many commercials or anything, right? So he's not one of those he's not one of those professional celebrities in that sense. While he's as pro as it gets. It's just that this was the first time he was doing something like this. So flying him in for the shoot and all that was whatever, had its own, as in he had to be chaperoned through and through, right? It was not about anything else. So it took an entire day to get him to sit in that little couch, and everything that he's spoken during this shoot has been shot on that one couch, right? It's an entire day where somebody has sat in front of him and got him to say everything line by line. And he was surprised at the end of it, right? And thankfully we did a sync sound, because I was trying to do the same thing, saying that okay, now we need to record his voice all over again, right? So when I went for the voice stuff, we were recording in a studio in Jalandhar, and we got him in, and he couldn't make it before some 9:30 in the night, and then by 1 o'clock in the morning we all gave up and we said we'll have to work with whatever we shot during the shoot, right? We're not going to get a dub again. The pre-part of it, which is from coming to the idea to selling the idea, was an absolute breeze, right? So somebody came and said, "Acha, this is the idea." We said, "Okay, please write it." We went to the client office and we presented, and we didn't have to go through anything else. But there we were told, "Okay, can we get this commercial within a month?" But from there to actually getting the commercial done, the growing pains that we had with Khali was a lot more painful than than the other processes around it.
Very interesting, So when I was reflecting on this one, it's like in Bombay, in those BEST buses, on the back, you would have always seen this whole Ambuja cement giant compressive strength, and you had this Sabu kind of a character, And I felt that
you would have seen this everywhere in the country if you drove by.
So in fact, I felt that the largest job of brand building for this brand was probably done by bus backs. As probably the lead medium before they did any advertising per se. And finally, it's a category which is probably driven by simple salience. I think hence it's the easiest way of doing it. You have your bus bags, you have lots of them, you have great salience. And who better than a Sabu kind of a character to talk about what the product is? It gives you giant compressive strength. That's it. As sort of straightforward as that. And then I think those ads which they had initially were very memorable. Ki ye diwar tooti kyun nahi hai, that whole two brothers fighting and so on and so forth. So that was quite hilarious. Yeah.
By the way, that was Baman Irani's first commercial ever done.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That was hilarious. I love those ads as well. And that particular spooky voice in which he says, "Ye diwar tooti kyun nahi hai?" So which was quite a good fun one. And then like a lot of brands, right? From a salience to just giving an emotion, a physical benefit. They try to move to emotional benefit with the whole piece of walls of prejudice. Like the way, say, Gillette tried to do with toxic masculinity. But then I think purpose is not easy to solve for. You can try purpose, but if there is nothing in your product that delivers on that promise, it's difficult to make it stick. So one would say, what does Ambuja have to do with prejudice, right? I mean, there is no, there is nothing at the core of it which is holding it together. And then from there, this whole thing of using humor, using a personality, using a celebrity, and a lot of celebrity ads are criticized because you remember the ad, you don't remember the brand. But I think in this case, because the fit was so beautiful, you remember the ad and you remember the brand. So I think that's the reason why this is probably one of those examples of celebrity advertising which really work in the simplest possible manner.
True.
So amazingly, if you look at that year, obviously India was running under its own issues, and infrastructure was kind of, the whole infrastructure industry was kind of taking a beating. So there was no real business growth. I think they were just about keeping everything going, right? It's not like this ad happened and suddenly their business grew up by some 3 or 4 times. They were already very big for such numbers to kind of come by. What it did for them was definitely cut through. It cut through from the most elite to the most to the least common denominator, right? It kind of cuts across everywhere. It's like one, right? And it just works mathematically. With a high top of mind of more than 50 to 60%, right? There was no real growth in the top of mind as well.
Right.
But the kind of virality that this ad saw, right? Before it even hit TV screens, we were already sitting with more than 500,000 views.
Wow.
Okay, in one night.
Wow.
We presented the film, and before we could send the tapes for release, it was put on YouTube and it was given as a WhatsApp link to one of the people in the marketing team, right? And by the time we woke up the next morning, it had already hit 500,000 views.
My God.
Nice. Really nice. Super fun.
Yeah. So yeah, that year we raked in, at least as an agency and a creative team, we raked in every award possible
Awesome.
in India and anywhere else, right? It was my last day when it was the Effies that year, by the way, in 2016. It was my last day at Publicis, and there was the Effies there was the Effies event happening that day itself. We also picked up the Effie Gold that day.
Okay.
Nice. Tell me, was there any kind of say criticism? The fact that there is a stereotypical way in which you are showing Khali. I mean, Khali is banging through walls and breaking them. So was there any of that?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So see, while the good thing about this commercial was the layers, right? So at a very fundamental layer, what you're looking at is very slapstick, right? It feels slapstick, but it's not, right? When you start feeling it is when you start realizing the pains of a guy who's like so big that he can't even live in his house peacefully, right? He's also being ostracized by the rest of the people in the house, right? So if you look at the layers, the way it gets built up, right? Yeah. And his demeanor and the way he speaks, right?
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
It's very innocent. I mean, with
It's
this.
very innocent. Yeah.
Yeah.
For a guy who's so big, right? And we've seen him in a couple of movies, but in all the movies he's playing one of these henchmen, right? The oversized henchman of a villain, right?
Correct.
In a scenario like that, he's so innocent. He speaks so well. It was there was no negatives that came by Saurabh. If that is what you're trying to ask, right?
Nice.
It just cut across everybody, and not only India. Even when we shared this in various forums in the international scene, right? Everybody gets it, even though they don't get the language, they get it.
Yeah, right.
You don't even need anything, right?
That's right.
Nice.
Yeah,
So it's one
that's
of
what
those.
like Ambuja Cement and Khali was like. I mean, there was probably no second
Yeah.
only. I mean, no controversy.
No, it had a very universal appeal, much like world cinema, right?
Mhm.
A lot of world cinema, you may not understand the language, but you get the emotion behind it completely. So it's one of those.
True. So what
Nice.
consumers' mind and mind shift? Like, I mean, as you said, 500,000. So later on, how did you, I mean, find the mind shift after this ad commercial and all?
There were no numbers to beat because the numbers were so high that you can't beat it with another one.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
This was more about emotional connections or rebuilding the emotional connections that Ambuja had with its customers. And when I say customers in Ambuja, they work at multiple levels, right? So it's a B2B2C company.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, in that sense, it kind of rebuilt or strengthened those bonds. There was a lot of work that we did with Ambuja, which was on a on-ground level, right? So because the stories keep changing street by street. Okay. Why it is strong, people have different notions altogether. In Calcutta, for example, they say Hater Garam cement because the factory is so close that by the time it reaches the stores, it's still hot.
Hater Garam
So it
cement.
feels hot in the hand. Hater Garam cement. So those kind of tiny anecdotes we kept working on everywhere with Ambuja on, right? So, but
Right.
a lot of them didn't even get captured really.
But yeah, that's what, like, I mean, we have captured nice stories through Ambuja Cement, share also. Glad that Chandan, you brought this here. And
Right.
really very interesting. A lot of things, I mean, I wanted to know and it was there. I mean, you already answered. I mean, what I jotted down, like why Khali and how challenging was it? And you actually mentioned it's not mentally challenging. It's like the physically also it was very challenging to accommodate those time and that particular person. So thank you for bringing.
Yeah. I was scared about shaking hands with him for the first time.
Yeah, some personal experiences, I mean, it's
So we got his diet chart before he landed, right?
Right.
So no, he doesn't eat so as much as people do think. As in, obviously he's a wrestler, so he will eat whatever he eats. But it's not like the rest and us and him.
It was a wonderful conversation, right? Saurabh, what is the 3 key takeaways or learnings you would like to share? I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of learnings, but 3 key takeaways. What do you feel?
What I love about this series that we have built is that, not only is this an engaging and a fun conversation, but I think there is something very clearly to, take out for, marketeers and say budding marketeers. So for me, the top 3 learnings are: 1, do things that engage consumers irrespective of category, right? Irrespective of which category you are in. It is the power of the idea that shines through. So that's really the first learning. And I think Khali was a great idea for a brand. Yeah. The second, expand the brand core, right? Extension of a giant compressive strength, which is your key proposition, has to be at the center of anything that the brand does, right? To keep the brand core central, keep the proposition central. Third, it's not about the fame of a celebrity. It's not about which celebrity is popular or in trend right now. What only thing that matters is how strongly does the celebrity connect to a brand. So evaluate celebrities on a brand fit. Yeah, I think those are really the top 3 learnings for marketers. And just in summary, it's the power of an idea which makes or break a marketing campaign. Second, expand the brand core and keep your proposition central. And third, choose celebrities for a brand fit and not just the fame of the celebrity. I think if these are the 3 takeouts that we have, it broadly summarizes what we've learned.
Superb, Saurabh. I think this is going to add a lot of value to them, to the audience, and to me as well.
Absolutely. I think consistency is always key. And there was something which somebody once said. It is about refreshing consistency. So you have to refresh each time you reach out to the consumer. But at the core of it, there has to be a consistent brand core. And as long as marketers deliver that, we see great growth in our brand metrics.
So refreshing consistency, sort of, if you just throw some that, consistency is one thing. We all know, but how to refresh it?
Absolutely. So, if you see any of the iconic brands out there, whether it is a Lux which talks about the choice of the Bollywood superstars, or it is a Pepsi which says I'm the voice of the new generation, each and every one of them comes up with a new avatar with a new advertising every year. What does swag have to do with, say, Pepsi's ad of 10 years back? But at the same time, the brand core, which is the fact that it is the choice of the new generation, does not change. Yeah. So you don't change the brand proposition, you don't change the brand core, but you refresh it every time in a new avatar. And I think that is what Ambuja did so well, right? Khali was a great way of building on top of everything that they've done in the past. So it refreshes the consumer, it engages them, but at the same time, at the heart of it is the consistency of giant compressive strength.
Right. Not leaving the message, but at the same time, that is the consistency. Got it.
That's right.
Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you so much. These are very, powerful and power pack takeaways. So I think, I have thoroughly enjoyed the whole conversation. And let's see what is coming next in Iconic Ads.
Somebody quirky, like you see, an Asian Paints Gattu. Maybe there are other such characters that have been created by brands who become celebrities because of the memorable advertising that has been built.
So I remember Ramesh Suresh. So why don't we pick up Ramesh Suresh? That is funny things I remember from my childhood times.
That would be a great idea. Who would have thought of Ramesh Suresh? You remember those advertising of Ek Balang, right? And who would create quirky characters like that? And I think in Indian advertising in the last couple of decades, probably the most memorable so-called created celebrities will probably be Ramesh Suresh.
Yes,
that should be a lot of fun to see.
I really remember that. So let's go ahead. Let's see what is in it for us.
Yes, I think you have to again dive deep into your contacts, Devleena. You have to call up some friends and maybe we can find somebody who knows a lot about that journey.
Yes. I'm sure. Let's find out. Let's dig deep. And let's get something exciting here in the next episode. I'm very excited about that because the characters, I love them.
Yeah. I think that will be great to figure out the background story and how it probably led to this current proposition of do nothing. It obviously started by the Ramesh Suresh. So I think that should be a good conversation the next week.
Yeah, and it's an expansion of your third takeaway. Don't go behind the fame of the celebrity. So let's see what Cadbury or 5-star have thought about it, and what was the thought process behind picking up Ramesh and Suresh.
Absolutely, that'll be a great idea.